Hey guys, so today I'm going to show my new build and I'd like to review the Thermaltake M240 liquid cooling kit. I know some of you are probably looking at this as an all-in-one solution for a custom loop because everything's included. So is it a good value? Is it worth getting? Should you just build your own from scratch? Can you expand on this? Those are all great questions. So I have done other custom loops before. This is my first PTEG tubing setup. I've always done the bendable tubing previously. So this is my first one that was a little more time consuming, a little more complex, but gives you much better results and a cool, clean look. So I did consider building my own from scratch for this type of setup because I've done that before, but I also thought about this kit and I thought how interesting it was just to get it all in one small package. So let's review this in detail a little bit and then I'll talk about how I installed it. So this can be had for $299.99. I picked this up on Amazon. It is a nice kit here and it does show you an example of how you could tube everything up. So let's review the components that it does come with. So first thing is it comes with the fittings here. These are compression fittings for PTEG tubing. These are 16 millimeter. It comes with 6 standard compression fittings and 2 elbows. Now these 2 elbows will use 2 of these compression fittings. So don't think that these are separate compression fittings. They're not. They're just elbows to change the angle. This is enough to do everything here. This will only cool your water block. So that means that if you'd like to add additional cooling components like a video card, video cards, and or motherboard, RAM, so on and so on, you will need additional fittings. So just be aware that if you are buying this and then expanding beyond what you got included. This is a 200 millimeter reservoir. The measurement height is about 150 millimeters, just to give you an idea for space. This actually is a decent pump and reservoir. It is a Thermaltake brand. It moves, I think it's a little over 1,100 liters an hour. This is the water block. This is a Pacific W3 water block. It's been out for a little while. Does not have any RGB, but it is nice, clear acrylic, so you can actually see the solution and the coolant once it's inside there. So a nice, decent water block. Of course, this can always be changed out later, but this is a solid water block, and it does support AM4 and the latest Intel chips. It does come with 3 Thermaltake RGB fans. This is the Ring 12 LED RGB set. They're not sort of chroma strobing capable, so that you don't get any movement out of them. They're not like full color spectrum, but they do have 256 color choices. You can let them change and alter between these. They're very nice fans. I've had these for a while actually on another setup. You can set them for just changing, morphing through the light colors, or you can have them static. You can configure them a few different ways, but they do put about a pretty good amount of airflow out. They go up to 2,000 RPM, and I think the lowest is 400 RPM for idling. The PTEG tubing, these are 500 millimeter length. You get 4 of them. I actually bought another set, so this is it, but the one thing I will say is everything in this pack is retail, so they're not custom packaging. They're all branded retail components that they've repackaged in this kit, which is very, very nice. But this is essentially the set you get. I bought an additional set. It's about $12. 500 millimeters. You get 4 of them. Even with my expansion that I did here, one set in this kit was still plenty to cool 2 components, which is actually really nice. If you'd like to do longer tubing, they do make up to 1,000, which is double this length. This is about 20 inches. If you measure it out. So if you want extra bending or you have a larger case or a more complex build, you can get the 1,000 length and you can cut it to size and do a little more craziness with it. The radiator itself is a 240, so it's a double fan height. It's not 280 double thickness, but it's a 240, so it's a decent size. Of course, you can always change the radiator out if you want a larger one later. This is actually enough though to cover 2, maybe 3 components. So you can expand beyond the CPU with this setup, which is very good. It does come with a liter of coolant, which is actually here. It is clear. And you have your power supply trip, which this is for pressurizing the system, getting the coolant moving along, and not running the motherboard while there's no liquid in there. So that's kind of your prep tool, which is very important. You technically don't need that. There are other methods. Of course, you could trip it yourself with 2 pins, but this is really nice to have. The last piece down here, which this is a very critical component when it comes to PTEG tubing, is your bending tube. So this is right here. It's a little rubber tube that will allow you to insert into the PTEG tubing. So when you heat it up, you bend it, it maintains its shape. So it doesn't bend, crease, break, or warp. So extremely important. The other things then, so that covers this kit. It's a very nice kit for the price. I think you're getting good value out of this. It's probably, if you're to PCs out manually, probably looking around $400. So you're saving about $100 going with this kit. Assuming you use everything. But I think some components that were left out that are important as well is a cutting tool. Because there's nothing in here to actually cut this tubing. You can get official PTEG cutters from XSPC. They actually have some that I use that are really, really nice. They're about $12. You can also get pipe cutters from Home Depot, Lowe's. Those also work very well. That is very important though. You could use a handsaw if you wanted to cut them as well. Just make sure that everything's smooth on the end. So you do have a few options, home remedies you could use, but I felt it should have been included. The only other component that would be nice, but is sort of more of a luxury item, is maybe a bending tool itself. I did actually all of these by hand, and I do have a bending tool. But I feel that the bending tool can help you get better corners, especially if you're new to it, because I did mess up a few tubes myself. So I think that would be nice. Those can also be had for about $10. So something to consider, I think, if you're getting this kit. If you wanted to buy something else, a cutter would probably be my next choice, and then possibly a bending tool if you just wanted some ease. So then reviewing these components then as they stand. These fittings are actually very, very good quality. I've used Thermaltake fittings before. They're stainless steel. They've got, I think it's a 3 O-ring seal, plus the 4th one on top for the final coupler spin. So very, very nice. The water pump and reservoir is also great, great build quality. Of course, you have your outlet pipe, and then you have your inlet on top, as well as a fill port or a pressure port. And then it does run, this is a little annoying, a 4-pin Molex connector. Very old school. So make sure you have one of those in your power supply still, or you could chop it off and wire something else up to it. But that was a little disappointing on that. It's just dated. Otherwise, though, this is a very, very nice pump. The water block is great as well. Like I said, this box was actually bundled before the AM4 chipset. So this is compatible with the AM4 chipset. And if you go to Thermaltake's website, they do specify that. So even though it isn't listed on here, it is listed on the purchase page on Amazon and Newegg. But it does support it officially, so you guys are aware. Like I mentioned before, I love these fans. They're high static pressure. They're great for cooling here. I'm actually not going to be using these fans because I have some Corsair RGB fans that I've been using in this case previously. So I'm not using these, but I would if I didn't have those fans already. Tubing itself, I wouldn't go with another brand. There are other brands and styles. This has always been good for good reviews on it, and it's easy to work with, and it's relatively inexpensive too. Radiator itself, pretty standard run-of-the-mill 240 millimeter. There are better ones out there. You can get them in different colors. Of course, you could always paint it too. By default, they're black. I have a white one as well. So this is absolutely fine. Good quality there. And that's pretty much it for the review on the case itself. So let's look at my build. So I've had this case for about 6 months. This is the Corsair 570 RGB tempered glass case. So it has 4 glass panels. One on the other side, on the right, the one in the front left here for the main view. We've got a top glass panel and the front glass panel. This is the mirror chrome finish. So it actually is reflective and stealthy when the system's off. You actually can barely see anything inside. So it almost doesn't even appear that it's see-through. Really, really cool if you've never seen one before. And then of course when everything's on inside, of course it's like a two-way mirror. As soon as it reflects back through and you can see everything inside the case, which is really, really neat. So a cool effect there. So the build I have, these are obviously some of the newer components that I have, and then I've reused a few others. So I'm doing a 2080 Ti. This is the XC Ultra Gaming. I'm doing with a Ryzen 9 3900. I've got the Formula ROG motherboard, and then I'm using a SilverStone titanium 800 watt power supply. It is fully modular. So let's see here. So the stuff I am reusing, again, of course, my RAM. This RAM's only about 6 months old as well. These are Corsair Dominator Pros RGB, so that'll look really nice once that's on. The case fans, like I said before, I'm using Corsair LL Series 120s. So these are fully programmable. They actually have a controller. So you've got 2 fan headers, one for the RGB controller, and then one for the actual fan itself. I'm running 3 on the front, 1 on the back. These are all the same style, and these are like the special edition white versions, which actually have a little more airflow. So they run at a higher amperage. Those are exhaust. This is exhaust. These are intake. Now, interesting thing here, my rear exhaust fan is actually not inside. I've done this before in the past, a long time ago with other cases, but I did a rear mount for this mainly because of space. This is a very tight setup in this case, especially once you do a custom loop. It does work and it fits, but it is very tight. With the fan on the inside, it was actually starting to rub on the board here on the chipset. And this panel actually has an OLED screen that's programmable, which is really, really cool. That would have been completely covered up by the fan. So for those few reasons alone, I decided that I didn't want to delete the fan. I still wanted it, but I put it on the back. Now, let's have a peek at that and see what the setup is. Is that a good idea? Is it acceptable? So here's what it looks like. It actually looks nice and clean. Ran the cables in. But I will say that it's a good idea to get a grill, and I'll bring this up for a closer look. So I've ordered a grill. It actually comes today. And what that's going to do is it's going to be a rear grill form here. That way, when you're coming around, plugging in cables, reaching around maybe to move the case, make adjustments, you're not going to get your finger in the blade here, which isn't a good idea. So I'm going to have a nice grill here. It'll look clean. It is receded a decent amount, and that's nice about this case. Some of them aren't like that. This one is, so that kind of makes it a little cleaner. It's not going to affect any of the ports here. And it's still going to pull decent airflow. So this is going to be an exhaust fan, so it's going to be pushing toward me, pulling hot air out. And now we can get a closer look about the inside, some of the tubing options I did, and how I ran everything. So, let me go ahead and get the light on here. So what I decided to do is radiator on the front. Now, I'm a little indifferent about this setup. I like it. We'll see about temps. So what's going on? I'm pulling cool air from the front, pushing it through the radiator, but I'm blowing that air into the case. Which is okay. The other option too is I could spin those fans around and spin it the other way. Additionally, I could put it on top. Once again, with limited space in this case, I felt this was my best option. So I'm going to try it out. I like the look. I'm still going to get some decent airflow coming in from the bottom here. That's going to push up. And that's unfiltered by this radiator, which is fine. So I'm going to have that there, but I'll check this setup out. I do have 6 fans total. So decent amount of air. I'm not too worried about that. Also, too, these 570s, if you don't know so already, have also a chipset fan. And it's also going to be liquid cooled, which is pretty sweet. So, what I've done additionally to this system, what is not standard in the kit. So I did get a flow indicator. Got this on Amazon. You can get these for less than 20 bucks. I think this one may have even been 12. It does have 2 sides to it. So there's the blue side, and then the other side has a red star. Really depends on the coolant you're using and the color you'd like to see through. So that being said, I've added a few other components to this, right? I'm cooling the motherboard, and I'm also adding another stop point here with the flow indicator. So that means I need more compression fittings. So I had to go with 4 additional because I'm not just doing the CPU. If I was only doing reservoir to CPU, CPU to radiator, radiator back to reservoir, the kit would cover that out of the box. But I'm able to expand on the kit with a few more compression fittings. And the tubing with the base kit, those 4 PTEG tubes, were enough to do this entire case with those add-ons, which is really, really cool. So definitely good value there. So I got 4 more compression fittings, and I was able to expand off here and add another component. If you were going to add a video card, you'd need 2 additional for each video card that you add for cooling. That may be something I do with this chip later. I don't know how I feel about doing a chipset, CPU, and video card on a 240. It would definitely work, but I'm going to monitor temps as they stand right now with this setup and see. Typically, I've always done 360s or even 480s when I start adding a video card to the loop. So I may go to maybe a 360 and maybe it'll call it done. We'll see. Maybe I'll move to a different case. So tubing bends as I did. As it's been shown before, loop order doesn't really matter too much, device order when it comes to a water loop. For the most part, the lowest temp on the inlet back out of the radiator, back into the radiator, for the most part, the fluid all stays roughly within 3 degrees Celsius of itself. It doesn't change much. It's not like they're rapidly heating and then rapidly cooling again. So for loop order, I went CPU into mainboard out, back into the radiator, and then the radiator back down was a little loop-de-loop. That was probably the most difficult bend that I did, and then back down into here. Now, one other thing you may see here, if you saw that, this is going to be my fill port. I just added a little rubber hose. That's something else they didn't include in the kit that would be nice to have. Once again, not required, but is a filling bottle. I got that one at
store, local store, which is not a big deal. You can get them from a grocery store, Lowe's, Home Depot. I do have a couple other filling tubes, like official coolant filling tubes, but I do not know where they are right now, so that'll be fine. Like I said, not required, but it's definitely a lot easier to fill it. Beyond that, let's see. That just about does it. I think the next steps here is going to be filling it up. So I've decided to go with a different coolant. I'm going to go with orange, just to add some color. I've done green before as well. The clear looks pretty neat. It's a nice clean look, and there's nothing wrong with it at all. Totally fine. So it really depends on the look you're going for. But I'm going to go with this fire orange. It should look really, really neat, nice and bright. And then we'll go from there. So I'll bring this back up in a moment, and we'll start filling it up. I'll leave a little bit of space for air and bubbles there. We want to monitor for drips. I don't see any, so that's good. These compression fittings are very good quality. Like I said, they have 4 O-ring seals, so they definitely get a really good bite. Of course, you just want to make sure everything's tightened up. They say, Thermaltake says, wait 24 hours to let all the air completely exit before you seal it back up. They also have these little pressure valve seals, fittings you can get for these. I actually have one. I'll probably put it on there. If it gets enough pressure in there, it'll actually release air, so that way you don't have to worry about like leaving it unscrewed or remember to put it back on or building too much pressure up in the system, which is kind of nice. But you can also leave the top off for a bit or leave the hose in there. Let it breathe. Of course, you know, doing a little bang, you'll hear little bubbles and stuff move through the system as the air kind of creeps its way out, but that's it. So once again, power supply's running, pump is running, motherboard's not powered up, no other components are powered up, so really we're just running the loop. Okay guys, we are back. So the build is complete. I'm pretty happy with everything. So you can see all the cool orange fluid. No leaks, which is awesome. These compression fittings work pretty well. As long as you get them hand tight, they're usually fine. I've got my Corsair lighting, which is really cool. And then here's the water block. Let's get some light on there. And then of course the chipset. Cool stuff. So here, now I do have Destiny running in 1080 right now on here, but that's what temps are at. Destiny's running. I have overclocked. I've got all the cores at 435 across the board. I'm running 135 core voltage. I could drop it down a little lower. I think I had it stable at 4.3 at like 132, 131. So I got another 50 megahertz out of it. I've done some serious stress testing on it to Prime 95 and didn't have any crashes after about 5 minutes. I didn't run it super long, but temps got up to about 80, 85 in Prime 95. General benchmarking though, it's in the 70s under full load, all 24 threads. So very, very happy with it. Yeah, great stuff so far. Like I said, maybe I'll do the video card at some point. I'm not sure. This setup is a little small to add all the heat. The last time I did a video card, I had a 480 radiator. So maybe I will, maybe I won't. If I do, maybe I'll go to 360, and that would probably be acceptable. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Let me know if you have any questions, please, and I'll respond as soon as I can.